So, obviously, a lot of talk about broadband usage growing, and I know that's kind of what First Communications has also been focusing on lately. What kind of things are driving, from your perspective, growth, especially within your corporation and within your network?
Well, our network's being driven to expand geographically, adding buildings and data centers, because our customers, who are large bandwidth consumers, are asking for larger and larger pipes. Wavelengths, 10 gig used to be the biggest, now 40 gig, 100 gig pipes. Driven a lot by the media, by the people that are at this type of show, the content providers, the media companies, the cable providers. And what we provide for them are custom private networks that can be lit capacity of the largest pipes, or even dark fiber, where they want to light and control their own network to handle the volume of ever-increasing video traffic, primarily, it seems from the information that we're seeing. And growing in the Midwest and Mid-Atlantic region, the custom private networks and the capacity connectivity that the cable companies, media companies, content providers need. And that's a newer area for our focus. We've been doing it for many years with the carriers and service providers and the very large enterprises.
So this is a little bit of a newer venture for you with the cable operators.
Exactly. So the fiber to the tower and the bandwidth to the tower, those needs are increasing. So that's another area that we serve, and we see that capacity need and connectivity needs growing, and that sort of overlaps and blends in with some of what you see here at this show.
So you mentioned the move from 10 to 40 to 100 gig. How long until the content that's starting to come through now really chews through and we have to find something even bigger pipes than 100 gig?
Well, actually, we already are working with some companies to provide them something called an alien wavelength, where you're not limited by that first 10 or that first 100 gig. So the technology is there to address that if anyone has that kind of need, and we're working with companies to look at deploying some of that with them.
And we're also seeing some demand in that space for that alien wave that we called it, from people who are perhaps not looking for huge amounts of bandwidth but want to have finite control over their bandwidth. So some of the financial companies that are doing the high transaction trading and are looking to have ultimate security and control over that network. So it's one step away from owning and lighting their own fiber network. So we're providing that fiber network for them and allowing them to, with another equipment solution, to almost seem like they have their own fiber network with dark fiber or their optical.
They like the idea of not having to come back to a service provider and having another cost to light the next circuit. So they invest in a different type of a platform with us, and then they can even have us be the provisioning arm for them if they don't want to have that internally, but they know it's there when they need it, on demand, whenever they want to grow.
Well, I think regardless of which niche of the market you're looking at, it's about quick scalability. You mentioned security.
Right.
Those are really two of the big things today.
Exactly. And the other thing that we've done on that network, so we've addressed the high end, we're also addressing the mid to lower end. We just dropped in MPLS switching gear on our fiber network. We put in MPLS switching in Chicago on the far west end of our network, in Cleveland, and in New York. It's kind of our initial anchor point. So we're offering MPLS switching over that fiber network, which really...
Because we had some customers who may not be ready for a gig connectivity.
Right.
They might need 100 meg, and they'll grow to it. So laying the carrier Ethernet over, it allows us to address customers as they're growing for their individual needs, and we're there and ready when they have the big bandwidth needs. And the other thing that's kind of interesting too, we talked about the connectivity where we're at, but sometimes it's looking at diverse routes, or there's some of our customers that are focusing on the low latency routes, and we have specialties in much of our network that address both of those. So they might want a ring topology, or they might want to get one route from somebody and a different physically diverse route. So those are two of the things that we also bring to the table, and in varying degrees, that's important to a certain customer segment, and another component, the latency might be important to another customer segment.
Certainly in the financial space, I imagine.
Very much so.
Exactly.
Very much so.
And our network, because of its origins, is different than most networks. A lot of the fiber networks were purpose-built for telecom. Ours was purpose-built for the utility, and as a result, probably between 30 and 40% of it goes to in physically different places than most other networks go. So that's a huge advantage we have in that vertical where people are looking for physical diversity.
Right.
So it just provides you access to a customer base that some of your competitive providers just don't have.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah. That in addition to being, so if you want to go from, let's say, Chicago to New York, everybody goes the same route. Well, we go slightly different. So somebody who's looking for, and if you were to lay the maps of all the fiber companies together and hold them up to the light, they'd almost be all the same.
Sure.
And it's because everyone goes over the same path. We kind of have some diversity there that provides an extra level of route diversity and safety.
Some protection and security for them, yeah.
So as far as that goes, any future geographic expansion plan?
Yes. Primarily, though, still within that region.
Okay.
So, say the Chicago to New York, down to DC and the Virginias, up to Toronto, Canada. So, more of it is in closing rings to improve connectivity and the topology that we can offer. Density within that. I don't think you're going to see, us down in the, out on the West Coast anytime soon.
Well, you've got, with some of the vertical markets that you've mentioned, real great coverage within that region that you're in.
Yeah, so I think it's more of a density, and adding additional buildings, closing rings is where you'll see our continued expansion. We're lighting more and more we've got over 5,400 miles of fiber. Not all of it's even lit at this point. So we have a rollout plan to be lighting our optical transport and then our carrier Ethernet over more and more of that route.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.